Thank you for listening to Depictions Media Radio. Welcome to Policy and Rights, the show about government policy and human rights. Welcome back to Policy and Rights here on Depictions Media Radio. Ethics. Is ethics a real problem in government? I mean, do we as the public think that the government is acting in our best interest, or are they acting in the best interest of whatever the corporation is? And the answer should show up in how we vote, but that's also a matter of controlled information, things like that. Rabbit holes we don't want to go down right at this particular moment. There has been a newly appointed ethics commissioner to oversee some of the loopholes and problems that have been presented in government to date. They're going to be discussing that, and he's going to be watchdogging to make sure that our elected officials, especially the Liberal government, is actually doing what they say they're going to do. That they are actually acting in the best interest of the public, which is at times in question when we look at some of the things that have actually happened to date with the government. Are they doing what they say they're going to do? Are they acting in the best interest? Are they trying to make our life livable? Are they allowing us the thought processes and things that we need to be vibrant human beings? And that's what we need to look at. In light of that, we've also recently, even through efforts of gun control and new laws to curb handguns, assault rifles, even hunting rifles and shotguns, that we still had another mass shooting appear within the Canada borders. We keep trying to say that no, that is a problem for other countries, that we don't really have that problem. And it would seem that we actually do. That mass killings isn't just a problem for one country, it is a global problem. There's a greater thing to this than just handgun control, because there are many other ways of killing someone besides firing a gun at them. We try to, I should say that media and government, they try to separate things up and say, no, that's terrorism. Has nothing to do with gun control. That isn't Canadian born, because blowing somebody up is also a mass killing. Finding a way to poison a water system is also a mass killing. And yet we've seen water poisoning happen due to tailings of a mine, but that mining company isn't going to be held held, have charges laid against them, they may not even ever be held accountable for the number of people that they have actually harmed and hurt. So the bottom line with the mass killings isn't about gun control. It isn't about terrorism. It is about having respect for people. Anyway, one of the other big issues that we're going to hear about today is nationwide dental care. A dental plan that is affordable for anybody with any particular type of income. Income if you're on a pension versus an income that, hey, you have some big corporate to do kind of a job. A statement is going to be made by Chrystia Freeland that a person's smile should not be just a reflection of their paycheck. A person's smile should not be dependent on their paycheck either. And is that part of the Liberal plan for national dental plan that was mostly engineered by the NDP. They are the ones who actually push for it. It is the Liberals that will deliver it. So why don't we listen to Mr. Poilievre, Chrystia Freeland, and Prime Minister Trudeau as they talk about ethics, dentistry, and mass shootings.
What do you think about that? The fact that the sister-in-law of Mr. LeBlanc has been chosen as the interim ethics commissioner?
Well, Mr. LeBlanc, of course, was found guilty, just like his boss, Justin Trudeau, of violating the ethics law. And his solution to make sure he's not found guilty again is to name his sister-in-law. Maybe they can talk about liberal ethics violations around the Christmas table while they're eating turkey dinner as family members. This is the Liberal Party has become the family and friends party, where they name friends, family members to protect them from accountability for their corruption. And if you don't laugh about it, you'll cry.
Does this seem to be a pattern of behavior for the Liberal Party in terms of, you mentioned family and friends selection? You have concerns about Mr. Johnston as well? Well,
they named a Liberal staffer to oversee the Emergencies Act Commission. They named the Prime Minister's ski buddy, neighbor from the cottage and member of the Trudeau Foundation, to look into the foreign interference. And now they name a cabinet minister who's been found guilty of breaking the ethics law. They named his sister-in-law to oversee ethics investigations. It sounds, what I'm worried about is that Liberals are going to run out of friends and family to name to these top positions. Thanks very much.
Is there another name that you would put forward?
Oh, there's plenty. We got almost 40 million people in Canada. Are you telling me we can't find a single one that's not either a ski buddy of the Prime Minister or a sister-in-law of one of his ministers? Give me a break. There are plenty of brilliant Canadians out there. We don't need to name Liberal family members.
You would agree she's qualified?
I'd also like to acknowledge that Indigenous people have been disproportionately harmed by the illicit drug toxicity crisis. This morning, myself and representatives from Vancouver Coastal Health, Providence Health, and the BC Centre on Substance Use were privileged to hold a roundtable discussion with the Honourable Chrystia Freeland, Canada's Deputy Prime Minister and Minister of Finance. We discussed strategies we have been using to address the illicit drug toxicity crisis that continues to devastate communities across this province. We also shared some of our challenges and barriers that we face in our efforts to turn the tide on this ongoing public health emergency. This week's 2023 federal budget announcement shows the federal government's interest in improving timely access to equitable mental health and substance use services. Of note for me is their interest in scaling up access to safer supply and evaluation of these innovative programs. As public health leaders, we recognize that there's a significant need to offer a regulated alternative to the toxic drug supply in order to decrease the risk of overdose in BC. Here in Vancouver, we have benefited tremendously from our partnership with the federal government. Examples include the establishment of Insight, the first supervised consumption site in North America, almost 20 years ago. Okay.
Pardon me, folks.
Okay. So here in Vancouver, we have benefited tremendously from our partnership with the federal government. Examples include the establishment of Insight 20 years ago, North America's first supervised consumption site. Fast forward to today, we are collaborating with the federal government on SAFER, a prescribed pharmaceutical alternative programs for people at highest risk of overdose in Vancouver. Evidence from this program is being used to inform prescribing practices of fentanyl-containing products. These milestone investments have enabled us to innovate and expand the services we offer to people who use substances. We look forward to exploring further partnerships and opportunities for collaboration with the federal government to improve the health and quality of life for people who use substances in our region. Now I'd like to invite the Honourable Chrystia Freeland to the podium to speak to the substance use investments in the 2023 budget. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much, Mark. Thanks, everyone who's here. Okay, good morning. First, I'd like to acknowledge that we're gathered on the unceded and traditional territories of the Musqueam, Squamish, and Tsleil-Waututh nations. And I have to say, I am really, really glad to be here today in Vancouver and to have had the chance to talk to, but actually mostly listen to, the incredible people at the Three Bridges Community Health Centre. Community health centres like this one are essential to keeping Canadians healthy, and health workers like the ones I had the privilege to hear from today are on the front lines of our public health care system. And I just really want to say to everyone who I heard from today, to the people who are here with me, I really, really value what you do. The government really, really values what you do. I know that all Canadians really, really appreciate and admire and are grateful for your work and the care that you give all of us every single day. And so I just really wanted to start by saying to the healthcare workers I met today, you do a really hard job, you do a really important job keeping the people of Vancouver safe and healthy. So let me just start by saying thank you very, very much. En tant que ministre des Finances, je sais également qu'un système de soins santé publique solide et efficace est essentiel pour notre économie. Notre économie repose sur une main-d'œuvre canadienne forte et en bonne santé. C'est pourquoi l'un des principaux piliers du budget que j'ai présenté cette semaine consistait à renforcer notre système de santé publique universel en réalisant un investissement global de 198 milliards de dollars dans les soins de santé publique que le Premier ministre a annoncé le mois dernier. Here in BC, this additional investment means an additional $28.5 billion for public health care over the next 10 years. That's $28.5 billion to ensure British Columbians have access to family doctors and nurse practitioners, to provide better access to mental health services, to tackle the unacceptable backlog of surgeries, and to ensure that every single person in this great province, in beautiful British Columbia, receives the care they need. And just as we reinforce our public health care system, we're also extending its reach. With a plan to provide dental care for millions of Canadians, we will ensure that no one has to choose between paying the bills and taking care of their teeth. Today in Canada, you can tell the size of someone's paycheck by their smile. That's wrong, and we're going to change that. On top of these historic investments in public health care, we're also delivering nearly $360 million to combat the opioid crisis that has devastated so many of our families and communities across Canada. That's what I heard about from amazing, compassionate, hardworking healthcare providers this morning. And I'd just like to say that this really is a crisis. And it's a crisis that touches so many of us in Canada. And it really is essential for all of us to act. I know how hard everyone here is working. The work you do here saves lives. And more Canadians need access to harm reduction services like the ones you provide here at Three Bridges. The new funding will mean more than $1.1 billion in total funding for the Canadian Drugs and Substances Strategy since 2017. And that's because we know that harm reduction and a compassionate and evidence-based approach to this crisis is absolutely essential. And I have to say, I heard so much about the importance of that approach from the really heroic people I listened to this morning. By funding community-based supports at places like this, by tackling substance abuse among young Canadians, and by cracking down on drug trafficking and working to cut off the global supply of these devastating substances, we will help save lives here in Vancouver, across BC, and across Canada. Our government is investing in healthcare because it matters to Canadians. It matters to our children, to our parents, to our friends, and to our neighbors. Because it's critical to building healthier, safer communities across Canada. And because British Columbians should be able to rely on a world-class, publicly funded healthcare system, one that is deserving of its place at the very heart of what it means to be Canadian. So thank you very much, Mark. Thanks to everyone who's here, and I'm ready to answer your questions.
Bonjour, merci d'être venu. We'll take questions now from the media. One question, one follow-up. If you could just state your name and your news organization before posing your question, that would be very much appreciated. If people need to stay with their cameras, maybe you can just raise your hand one at a time. Yeah, sir.
Si on peut avoir un résumé en français, s'il vous plaît, des chiffres d'annonce.
Ah, les chiffres de l'annonce. OK. Oui, j'ai compris. Alors, on était ici pour souligner, premièrement, les investissements qu'on a fait dans les soins de santé au Canada. On a annoncé en février que le fédéral va investir 198 milliards de dollars dans les soins de santé. En particulier, ici aujourd'hui, nous avons parlé de la crise des opioïdes et on a discuté l'investissement additionnel de 360 millions de dollars dans les programmes comme l'excellent programme qui est ici. Avec cet investissement, le fédéral a investi, commençant en 2017, 1,1 milliard de dollars dans la crise des opioïdes et des autres drogues.
Do you have a follow-up, sir?
No.
Hi, I'm asking this question for research money. There are two different tangents here. So the first one, with this funding that you're announcing, the $28 million, what types of partnerships with various groups, like community groups and research organizations, do you anticipate coming out of this investment?
So I think the important thing is the announcement that the money is there, and we're now going to be working with groups and communities across the country, with researchers and communities across the country, with doctors and healthcare authorities across the country to specifically determine where the money is going to go. And I do also want to point to the really important work that my colleague, Minister Carolyn Bennett, and my colleague, Minister Jean-Yves Duclos, are doing and will continue to do in this space.
I see. And this question is unrelated. It goes back to yesterday when you were speaking to the Greater Vancouver Board of Trade about Canada's performance in relation to OECD countries, and you expressed a lot of confidence that the transition to the clean economy would mobilize the business community like you want to, and also help achieve economic growth. So what gives you the certainty that that there will be those investments and the economic growth?
Okay, that's a very big question, and I could probably spend like 2 hours answering it. I won't, though, because I don't think you guys would like me to do that. Let me just say this. I am very aware of the challenges Canada faces. I've spent this morning having actually quite an emotional conversation about the opioid crisis and the particular very painful challenge for many, many families across Canada that is posed. I'm also aware of the challenge many Canadian families are facing right now with affordability. So we definitely need to be aware of the problems and the challenges many people in Canada are facing right now, today. Having said that, I am really, really optimistic about Canada's future. I'm really, really optimistic about the potential of our country. I'm optimistic because, one, we have the people. Canadians are the best educated in the OECD, and we are a country that welcomes immigrants and that is good at it. So that's one of our strengths. Second strength, our natural resources. And right now, with the clean economy transition and with the decision the world's greatest democracies have made that they don't want to rely on dictatorships for their supply chains anymore, that puts made in Canada products at a premium, and that is a huge opportunity for us. And then the third thing that gives me real confidence in Canada is we have a tremendously strong manufacturing and resource base right now. In the budget, we put forward an $80 billion government investment plan in the clean economy. And that plan, plus all the advantages Canada has right now, I think really means that in the 21st century, Canada has everything it takes to own the podium. And by the way, we had some strong first quarter GDP figures this month, much stronger than economists were predicting. 0.5% growth in January, 0.3% growth in February, on track for 2.8% in the first quarter. So, thank you very much to all the hard-working Canadians who are really doing a great job.
Thank you.
We'll say hi to you in a second. I apologize for my back to you the whole time.
Good morning, everyone. Bonjour à tous et à tous. C'est un énorme plaisir pour moi de pouvoir vous accueillir ici dans ma belle circonscription de Moncton, Riverview et Dieppe. Je tiens à saluer la présence aujourd'hui de notre Premier ministre, M. Trudeau. Merci beaucoup d'être ici avec nous à Moncton, le berceau de l'Acadie. Puis encore une fois, un gros merci à Ministre LeBlanc, le député de Beauséjour, d'être ici avec nous aujourd'hui. Puis aussi un grand merci au personnel du Centre dentaire de Alton's College. Thank you so much for being with us today. It's really a pleasure to welcome you all here in Moncton. Comme vous le savez, probablement, la région de Moncton est une des villes canadiennes qui connaît la plus grande croissance du pays. Cela signifie d'immenses opportunités qui sont à nos portes. Et c'est grâce à la détermination, la résilience et la créativité des gens d'ici. Just last November, I was right here at Alton's College, where I was able to visit the dental clinic and witness the quality training offered to our young people and the dedication of the staff to their student success. With their state-of-the-art infrastructure, they have everything they need to welcome and to provide care for clients of all ages and backgrounds. As you know, our government has tabled an ambitious budget this week in order to meet the needs of Canadians all across the country. One of the most pressing issues is to continue to find ways to addressing the cost of living. I'm happy to see our government stepping up to help millions of Canadians get the dental care that they need while making life more affordable. Because we all know that better access means better care for everyone. Je remercie encore une fois le Collège Oltons de nous avoir ouvert les portes aujourd'hui. Et puis, sans plus tarder, je suis très contente de pouvoir passer la parole au Premier ministre Trudeau. Merci encore.
Merci, Ginette. Merci tout le monde d'être ici aujourd'hui. Merci à Ginette pour l'introduction. Je suis très content de te voir aussi, Dominique. C'est un plaisir d'être de retour ici à Moncton, au Centre de formation dentaire du Collège Olton. On Tuesday, our government released Budget 2023. It's a made-in-Canada plan for great jobs, to make life more affordable for the middle class, to build a clean economy with clean electricity, clean manufacturing, and clean tech, and to invest in Canadians' health. An important part of our health care is dental care, but dental care can be expensive. Earlier today, I talked to May and Michael, parents who struggle to afford dental care. May and Michael come to the free clinic here at Olton College Dental Education Centre, but we know she needs help. There are a lot of other people who don't make enough to afford dental care, but still make too much to qualify for the threshold that gives support. So we want to close that gap for working Canadians. On Tuesday, we announced the Canadian Dental Care Plan. This is the next step in our plan to make sure that all Canadians can afford dental care. The Canadian Dental Care Plan will provide dental coverage for uninsured Canadians with family incomes under $90,000 a year. And if you or your family makes under $70,000 a year, costs will be fully covered. The plan will begin to roll out by the end of 2023, and once fully implemented, will help up to 9 million Canadians afford to see a dentist. This is a major investment that builds on the Canada Dental benefit that's already helping families afford dental care for kids under 12. More than 250,000 kids have already gotten support for this program, which is why it's so disappointing that Conservative politicians voted against it. Programs like this are for Canadians like May and Michael, who work hard and want to be able to provide the very best for their family. And that's what our budget is about. En plus d'avoir de la difficulté à payer pour les soins dentaires, on sait qu'il y a aussi, à travers le pays, des enjeux de difficulté à l'accès à des soins dentaires. Par exemple, pour les gens en situation de handicap ou ceux qui vivent dans des régions rurales ou éloignées. Donc, pour aider à éliminer ces obstacles, on met en place aussi un nouveau fonds d'accès à la santé bucco-dentaire. En plus d'aider les gens à voir un dentiste, on propose dans le budget d'autres mesures pour rendre la vie plus abordable. On met de l'avant le nouveau remboursement pour l'épicerie, qui va permettre à un couple admissible avec 2 enfants de recevoir jusqu'à 467 $. Ce paiement unique va aider les personnes qui en ont le plus besoin à bien se nourrir et à payer leurs factures. We hope all parliamentarians will do the right thing and help us pass legislation with the new grocery rebate quickly so that Canadians who need support can get it as soon as possible. We're cracking down on junk fees and hidden fees, lowering credit card fees for small businesses, and increasing federal student loans and grants. I was talking with some of the dental hygienist students here at Olton, and I reminded them, and can remind any other students and apprentices, that starting tomorrow, the government will have permanently eliminated interest on all Canada student loans and Canada apprentice loans, including those currently being repaid. We announced this last fall, but we passed legislation so that Canadians get this support. Most importantly, it'll make it more affordable for people to get the skills and education they need to build the careers they want and our economy needs to grow. Le budget de cette année s'appuie sur le travail qu'on fait depuis 7 dernières années et demie. pour bâtir une économie en croissance avec de bons emplois pour la classe moyenne, pour s'assurer que le Canada soit compétitif dans un monde en pleine évolution et surtout pour soutenir les gens en investissant dans les soins dentaires, dans les garderies à 10 $ par jour, dans l'amélioration des soins de santé, dans de meilleures pensions pour les gens âgés. Conservative politicians have already said they will oppose this budget, opposing this important dental support, opposing this plan for great jobs, to build a clean economy, and to make life more affordable for Canadians. But we know that when the middle class is strong and growing, when everybody benefits, that's when Canada and Canadians can be at their best. Merci beaucoup tout le monde. Je suis heureux de prendre vos questions.
Merci, Premier ministre et la ministre Petitpas-Taylor. Thank you, Prime Minister and Minister Petitpas-Taylor. Nous avons 20 minutes pour les questions des médias. We have 20 minutes for questions from media. Et on va commencer avec CTV.
Hi, good morning. Welcome to Moncton. My question is about yesterday's Mass Casualty Commission. I'd like to get your reaction to the two top Mounties, the Assistant Commissioner and the Interim Commissioner, admitting yesterday in Truro that they didn't read any of the report, including the recommendations, despite having it a full day before the public release.
Yesterday was a really important day. It was a day to recognize the continued pain that families in Nova Scotia and people across the country continue to feel following the worst mass shooting in Canadian history. It was a day to thank the commissioners for extensive and thoughtful work, over 3,000 pages of report that obviously need to be taken seriously and considered at length. But also a day to understand that there need to be changes, that there were very strong and clear recommendations put forward that are going to take time to absorb and to build action plans so we can meet them. It's something that obviously Canadians feel a real urgency around. We need to continue to do everything we can to ensure that communities are safe. We also need to get it right, so we will be taking the time to do that. And I look forward to doing that with the RCMP and other police forces across this country.
Hi, I'm Susanna Point from Global News. Earlier this week, the provincial government tried to introduce changes that would scrap the provincial government's legal obligation to review the Official Languages Act each 10 years. What's your comment on that?
As people well know, our Liberal government federally has always been there to defend official languages right across the country. Protecting French specifically in Quebec and across the country matters deeply to us, and that's why we've put forward about $3.8 billion in this over the coming years under the strong stewardship of Minister Petitpas-Taylor to make sure we are protecting official language communities right across the country. We will continue to do that. And unfortunately, we do know that Conservative premiers specifically in places across the country continue to not understand how important it is to protect official language minorities. And as a federal government and as strong federal voices, we will continue to be there for official language minority communities, to protect both official languages in this country in every way we possibly can. Je pense que c'est important de souligner que notre gouvernement va toujours être là pour protéger les communautés de langue officielle en situation minoritaire. On reconnaît à quel point c'est important. C'est pour ça que, sous le leadership de Ginette Petitpas-Taylor, on a mis de l'avant un plan pour moderniser la loi sur les langues officielles. On parle de 3,8 milliards de dollars d'investis dans les langues officielles pour les années à venir dans ce dernier budget. Donc, on va continuer d'être là. Et évidemment, les gens savent très bien que le Parti libéral, au niveau fédéral et ailleurs, va toujours être là pour protéger les langues officielles en situation minoritaire. Malheureusement, on voit trop souvent que c'est des gouvernements conservateurs à travers le pays qui s'attaquent aux langues officielles minoritaires. C'est pour ça que nous avons une équipe extrêmement forte pour veiller sur la protection des minorités et d'être toujours là pour les protéger.
Prochaine question.
Oui, la question pour M. LeBlanc. Je voulais savoir, M. LeBlanc, si vous pouviez commenter le fait que votre belle-sœur a été nommée commissaire à l'éthique et au conflit d'intérêts par intérim, et si c'était pas problématique du point de vue des perceptions.
Pardon. Comme vous savez, moi, je n'ai pas participé du tout dans ce processus-là. D'ailleurs, je me suis récusé lorsque le premier ministre a discuté de cela avec le Conseil des ministres. Alors, moi, j'ai rien à ajouter. J'ai pas participé d'aucune façon dans cette décision.
Et ce que je peux souligner tout d'abord, c'est que la commissaire intérimaire œuvre au sein des plus hauts niveaux à l'intérieur du bureau du commissaire à l'éthique depuis plus de 10 ans. Elle a été là depuis le gouvernement Harper. Et elle a fait un excellent travail sous l'ancien commissaire Dion. Et elle l'a d'ailleurs remplacé une couple de fois quand il était en congé de maladie. Il faisait face à des problèmes de santé. Donc, elle s'y connaît. Et je vais souligner aussi, deuxièmement, que s'il y a bien un bureau qui comprend comment gérer des conflits à l'éthique ou des apparences de conflits, c'est ce bureau-là. Et les gens peuvent avoir confiance que cette commissaire intérimaire va faire un excellent travail rigoureux comme ils le font toujours.
Can we get you to repeat both of those answers in English?
First of all, it's important to understand that the interim ethics commissioner has been a senior official in the ethics commissioner's office for over 10 years now. First started under Stephen Harper and has done excellent work under the previous ethics commissioner, including replacing him for stretches when he was on medical leave for some serious health problems. And secondly, if there is any office in the country that understands how to manage conflicts of interest and ethical perceptions issues, it is that office there that has always done exceptional work at ensuring the confidence of Canadians.
Au moins 6 morts près d'Akwesasne, près de la frontière, potentiellement des migrants. Les autorités de la région ont constaté une hausse des traversées illégales. Avec la fermeture de Roxham, il y a des experts qui se questionnaient si on allait voir davantage de migrants, de personnes qui traversent illégalement, mourir, d'autres tragédies. On va en voir d'autres de ces cas-là. Qu'est-ce qu'on fait avec ça?
Tout d'abord, il faut s'arrêter sur cette tragédie. C'est inimaginable ce que les familles de ces individus-là, y compris le jeune enfant qui a péri, sont en train de vivre. Et il faut avoir un moment de réflexion et de compassion pour cette famille-là et pour tous ceux qu'on a perdus au cours des dernières années à ce niveau-là. Il y a une enquête en cours et je veux pas sauter sur les spéculations et les faits non confirmés qui circulent à présent. Il va falloir qu'on comprenne bien qu'est-ce qui s'est passé pour pouvoir prendre de meilleures mesures pour protéger les gens vulnérables. I think first of all, our hearts go out to the families of the individuals who perished. This is a heartbreaking situation, particularly given the young child that was among them. This is something that we all have to take a moment of pause and compassion on. We need to understand properly what happened. This happened, and do whatever we can to ensure that we're minimizing the chances of it happening again.
Experts at a parliamentary committee today said that throwing money at the RCMP to deal with foreign interference with no policy in place will be problematic. The Foreign Interference Office will be under the Minister's Office, which is not independent. Will you commit to changing the approach?
This government, from 2015 onwards, stepped up significantly our approach, or the approach that Canada takes on countering foreign interference. When we took office, there were very few, if any, processes to counter foreign interference, and we established a number of new mechanisms and bodies to do that. First of all was the Election Interference Panel, a high-level panel of top civil servants working with officials and experts in the intelligence community to ensure that the integrity of our elections in 2019 and 2021 held, which they were able to confirm independently and responsibly. We also created 2 new mechanisms in NCIRA
which is an expert committee to oversee the operations of our intelligence services and communities, but also NSICOP, which is a National Security and Intelligence Committee of parliamentarians from all different parties who get cleared to top secret levels, who can then dive into everything that is being done or not done by our intelligence communities. So we have significant mechanisms in place. The extra funding to the RCMP to help with election interference will add itself to that. And on top of that, we have called upon an outside, independent, nonpartisan expert in David Johnston, our former Governor General, who has the broad mandate to dive deep into our entire foreign interference landscape to see everything that we are doing, anything more we need to do, and we look forward to working with him on that.
Yeah, hi, Prime Minister. So I'd like to go back to the interim ethics commissioner question. So you spoke about how the office is super qualified to manage conflicts of interest or perceived conflicts of interest. My question more is about how Canadians would perceive what's happened with Minister LeBlanc. It's not the first time he's been involved in something like this. I'd like to hear from both of you on this, please.
The interim ethics commissioner has worked at the highest levels within the ethics commissioner's office over the past many years, and from the very beginning there were already measures in place to ensure that the work is done professionally and without conflicts given the connections. This is something that is a continuation of what has been done in the past, and we will continue to ensure that all the necessary tools are in place so that Canadians can continue to have confidence in the Ethics Commission. I will highlight as well that the work that the previous Ethics Commissioner did, in which the current interim commissioner was a close part of, was certainly very clearly doing its job in rigorous ways.
I was wondering if we could go back to Aquasans and the discovery of these 6 bodies. It's exposed the dangers of human smuggling right now. And I was wondering what the federal government's response to this is, since the situation might become more dangerous because Roxham Road has been closed.
I believe I answered that question a few minutes ago. Our thoughts are first and foremost with the families who are suffering the loss of loved ones right now. And obviously there are many questions that need answered, but we're not going to respond to the various speculation going on right now. We're going to continue to approach this with the seriousness and the thoughtfulness that it requires.
Your government speaks a lot about looking out for the middle class. Why should Canadians have confidence when it comes to housing that you're looking out for the average person rather than the property investors who you work with?
I don't understand the question.
There are many property investors in your cabinet and who work for the Liberals. So why should Canadians have confidence when it comes to the housing that you're looking out for the average person and not property investors?
The reality is that no government has done more on housing than us over the past 8 years. When we in 2015, the government had completely neglected federal role in housing. $1 billion national housing strategy over the past years. We ensure that millions of Canadians have access to new homes over the past years. We have moved forward last year with $10 billion in investments in housing that are being rolled out right now across the country, and we will continue to be there to support Canadians looking to get into the housing market. Just a few weeks ago, I was in Guelph, Ontario, making an announcement on the Housing Accelerator Fund, which works with municipalities to build opportunities for Canadians over the coming years to accelerate housing, whether it's accelerating permitting or accelerating some of the zoning processes or creating greater zoning density. These are things that we're going to be working with municipalities on. Now, the Conservatives, on the other hand, have continued to pick fights with municipalities. Continue to threaten them when everybody knows that solving housing challenges means working together to be there for Canadians, which we have consistently done as a party and we will continue to do.
Prime Minister, the mass casualty report called for really whole-scale changes in the way the RCMP operate and are trained. Are you prepared to implement the changes that are recommended?
As I said, the Mass Casualty Commission did extraordinary work in putting forward thoughtful and transformative recommendations that require us to dig into thoughtfully and at great length. This is something we need to take extremely seriously, and we have always taken very seriously, from issues around gun control to community policing to public safety to governance within policing across this country. There are many issues that we will be taking a long, hard, thoughtful look at, but we understand the need to make real changes, and that's exactly what we're going to do.
I know you haven't been very long, but you may or may not do have a homeless issue. For money to help with that problem. What's the federal government going to do to help ease the solution?
Over the past number of years, as part of our national strategy, we've stepped up our supports for programs like Housing First and other programs to fight homelessness and to support people facing the risk of chronic homelessness. We have a goal of eliminating chronic homelessness in the coming years, and the way to do that is for the federal government to continue to work with provinces, municipalities, and civil society organizations that are there to fight for the most vulnerable. We know, for example, that our rapid housing program has been extraordinarily effective over the past years in accessing housing for people who are most vulnerable, and that is continuing. We're now on the third phase of the rapid housing program. Because we've seen how much of a difference it's made. But as you point out, there's lots more to do, and we will continue to do it.
Last question, dernière question.
Prime Minister, we heard from you about, on the question about the provincial government's proposed changes to the Official Languages Act. Minister Petitpas-Taylor, I'd like to hear from you. You were heavily involved in the French immersion proposed changes. What do you make of what Premier he's going to do, because he has a majority government? I mean, he's effectively wiping out the Official Languages Commissioner's role in this province.
Well, first of all, I have to say I'm probably well positioned to address perhaps that question, because last year I had the opportunity of having a cross-country consultation in preparation of our next action plan for the year 2023-2028. And with that consultation, we heard from 6,500 Canadians from coast to coast to coast. And we heard from Canadians the importance of making sure that governments do all that they can to really promote and to respect the vitality of the Francophone communities across the country and all official language minority communities. And as a government, that's why that we went forward with an ambitious modernization of our own Official Languages Act in Ottawa nationally. We want to make sure that as a federal government that we recognize that French is in decline in this country, the only language that's in decline in this country, and through our legislation we need to do more in order to protect that. We're also moving forward with an action plan with a $3.8 billion investment over the next 5 years, which is a historic amount of money that we're bringing forward. So I have heard from constituents in New Brunswick the need that federal and provincial governments need to do more. The federal government has stepped up, and I certainly hope that all of our provincial colleagues are going to do the same thing, because again, we recognize that French is in decline, and we certainly have to do more in order to repair that demographic loss. Encore une fois, comme ministre des langues officielles, je dois vous dire, je suis très bien positionnée pour vraiment reconnaître les enjeux qui existent dans ce pays en tant que les langues officielles. Nous sommes le premier gouvernement à reconnaître que le français est en déclin au Canada, et c'est pour cette raison que le gouvernement fédéral a mis de l'avant un projet de loi qui est ambitieux, le projet de loi C13, pour protéger et promouvoir le français partout au pays, y compris le Québec. Nous reconnaissons que le français est la seule langue qui est menacée, puis c'est pour cette raison que le gouvernement fédéral et les provinces et les territoires doivent faire leur juste part pour adresser cette situation. Les données du recensement l'année passée nous ont démontré une perte du poids démographique dans ce pays ici, et puis encore une fois, une manière à réparer cette perte démographique, c'est par des initiatives qui sont ambitieuses. Une de ces initiatives, c'est le projet de loi C13, puis aussi notre prochain plan d'action pour les langues officielles que nous allons lancer d'ici quelques semaines.
Thank you. That will conclude today's press conference. Merci. Ça va mettre fin à la conférence.
Thank you for listening today. And, you know, I don't know how to state this any clearer. We need to impress upon our society that we need to have respect for all of us as human beings. That we need to see each other in an equal eye, so that when we see people equally, it makes it harder to do harm to them. It makes it easier to care for them and to build systems so that we all can thrive and live well. Please find that subscribe button wherever you may see it. I'm Michael Clogs, and I've been your host today on Policy and Rights here on Depictions Media Radio. This show has been produced by Depictions Media. Please contact us at depictions.media for more information.